and gave him another frame of foundation. This one over here, I didn't like her pattern at all. Her pattern was not good at all. So I wrote KYDQ, killed yellow dot queen, plus a breeder queen 46. So I gave a daughter of number 46 that was mated in 2012, and I put it under a push-in cage because I'm removing a queen and putting in a new one. I'm removing a laying queen and putting in a caged queen that's not laying. They're going to object sometimes. But if you put them under a push-in cage, she starts to lay. Now she's a laying queen. Now 4 days later, when you pull the cage, she's already laying and everything's okay. But there were queen cells. Cells, C/J means cells with jelly. So they had emergency cells because the queen was isolated underneath the push-in cage and the pheromones weren't getting distributed. And then on 809, I took out frames of foundation and put in more foundation, or combs. No, I probably put combs in this time. Anyway, that's, looks like we're gonna get it.
Everybody got the umbrella?
That's what I do. If there's any questions, I can just quick open this.
Did you cut the cells?
Of course, sure, I cut the cells. But see the population now? Populations are getting pretty nice.
Yeah.
Is there any difference in the bees? These bees look darker, don't they?
Yep.
Yes.
See, there's two different breeder queens. There's daughters of two different breeder queens there. So I would say this is a darker bunch than this. This is one from one of my own stocks. This 46 is actually from a breeder queen that I got from Adam Finkelstein in Maryland. Yeah, I wanted to try his, see what his stock is doing. So I got one. I raised a bunch of queens from him. I put in nukes and I put them in beehives and I watch them for a couple years.
Yeah.
And see what happens. And if something seems to be exceptional, after a couple years, production, no chalk root, gentleness, and well, like that build up and strong in the spring, maybe I'll use that one of those as breeder queens.
Do you do that to alter the genetic? I mean, to give them more genetics?
Sure. Well, every queen that a set breeder queen raises, every daughter isn't a breeder queen. Maybe isn't even a production queen. You know, maybe they're not really good enough.
Yeah.
You know that notches in the internet.
Notches. Oh, because there's a hole in the box.
Oh.
This hole in the box is my upper entrance. You see that it's covered with duct tape now, but there's an auger hole right here, and that's the upper entrance that lets the moisture out in the winter.
You always want that hole on the same side as the entrance?
No, not always, but because of if we were to close that up and it was over here, all the field bees would be coming in over here, but the remaining entrance is over here. Is that thunder?
No, that's a dumpster. I guess my question is, do you worry about genetics, or you just have enough in your area or your yard?
I worry constantly about genetics. That's why I raise my own queens.
I mean, do you worry about bringing in new genetics? Or
No, because I think you have to do that. I think you have to bring in new genetics. If you don't bring in new genetics, it's called a closed breeding system. And in order to run a closed breeding system, you need something 25 or something breeder queens, 25 different lines of bees, and it'll get you, I think that'll keep you good for 20 years. I don't have 20 lines of breeder queens, and I'm not raising queens from 20 lines. So yes, every so often I'm bringing in other stock and trying it out, and putting it out there in the yards, and taking the genes from that and spreading it around.
You test it first.
I don't know. But this is what they do. This might have been the frame that I put in there on 727. So I put that in there on 727, and look, it's very well drawn out. It's all worker.
That was foundation?
That was foundation on 727 on a flow. But they just love to draw a worker comb. They very rarely mess up and draw drones. Occasionally you'll get one, they really want some drones, and it'll be toast. I mean, it'll be just worker and drone and all messed up. That happens. But for the most part, these things are drawing out worker comb. So then also on 809, if I took away a frame of foundation, I probably put in a comb. Rather than putting in a foundation on 809, which is just before EAS here, at nearing the end of the flow, I didn't really want to put in foundation, so I probably put in comb. So I probably put in a comb right here in this, either in this slot or this slot. I'm not sure which.
Why did you go with 4 frames rather than 5?
Because I can't fit in the divided box. 5 won't fit.
I see. Okay.
You'd have to use a piece of Luan or something. Boy, that's not very much space for a cover to go on. So let's see. I'd probably put this comb in on 809. And it's all well laid up. She's laying up. She's a champ. Oh my gosh. This side of this frame is just absolutely gorgeous, you know? This shows you what she's laying. So I got a gorgeous frame of open brood. Go ahead and pass that around. See how she's laying? See how that larval pattern is? It's full. She's doing a great job. So that's a good queen. To me, that's a really good queen. And that's what I'm looking for. So when I examine the brood pattern, you know, I'll pull a comb of brood out and look at it, and if I can get a good idea that this is a pretty good queen laying pretty well, that to me is, well, it's still the same thing. I still think that's a 3+. Yeah. Out of 5. Right? It may even be a 4, but it's a little bit scattered. There's a little bit of young ones and old ones next to each other, but not bad. It's not scattered across the whole frame.
Don't you think that's the comb you brought up from the bottom?
This is probably the one I brought up from the bottom. The other one is probably the one I put in there when I took out a foundation and gave them a comb. You know, she won't lay in light combs a lot. They would prefer to lay in dark comb. And since if they swarm, it's because she didn't have a place to lay. I pulled out that light comb on the outside, probably had some honey in it, and I put a dark comb at the center. Remember, the center is the center of her brood nest. So now she has a dark comb above her head to lay in. Bang, she goes right in it. And you look at that comb and you'll see, she went right in it. That was 9, that was, what, 3 weeks ago? Almost 4 weeks ago. Larvae. Nice young open brood. Larva.
What's it look like?
Well, look at it. Hold it up to the light. Let the light shine in it.
Hey Mike, do you try to keep a mixture of all your however many lines you have, do you try to keep them mixed up in all of your yards?
Mixed up.
Okay.
Sure.
So when you talk about a line, is it just like the mother line? You don't know which drones. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So you know, sometimes the mother line is black, and I put that queen in a hive, and the bees are black, and they go back there to pull a breeder queen in there 5 years later or more.
Yeah.
Because their production has been great for all these years, even though they changed their queen once or twice, and they're yellow.
Yeah.
So it changes, but
you would still call that line
I would still
42
call it that
or whatever.
line.
Yeah. Okay.
If I knew they changed their queen, I might call it like if they changed their queen in 2012 and it came from number 39 that was raised in 2008, I might call it a 12V, 12 virgin slash 39.08.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep track of that code.
Yeah, right. But I know what it means.
That's good. I'll use.
I know what it means.
What would you want
sorry.
to be doing or seeing happening with this hive as you're headed towards winter? Because it looks like you've got lots of brood, but not storage.
I've got it exactly where I want it now, except for feed.
Honey.
So these guys should have been sitting in their bee yard, making goldenrod, packing goldenrod everywhere there isn't brood. So by the time the goldenrod flow is done, say by the middle of September, I would expect to see close to 3 frames of honey in the top, or approaching that. Maybe still some brood here, but with honey, capped honey all around it. And as it emerges, they put nectar in it, and maybe you know, a couple frames, 2.5 frames of honey in the bottom, and still lots of brood. That's what I would like to see, and then I would feed them about the middle of September. If I felt that they needed some more, the second half of September, if I felt they needed more feed, I would put a gallon of syrup on this and see what happens. See if now they have, with that extra gallon, they have enough for winter.
When you have a gallon, how much honey do they make?
A gallon of syrup is about 10 pounds of feed.
Okay, thanks.
Of 2 to 1 syrup.
Right.
So the proportion that you want going into the winter is for 4 frame is like 3.5 honey to
If it's a double story,
Yep.
4 frame, you'd want about 3.5 frames of honey up here. You know, this outside surface can be sort of not full like that.
Yep, okay.
But you want that full.
Yep.
And down below, you would probably want the outside comb partials, and then a full one, and then maybe a little bit with some black comb where they can cluster. So you got something like 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 frames of honey between the top and the bottom. But there's 8 combs, so you don't need it all honey.
Okay.
Do you ever, to simplify feeding like that, do you ever like feed a large colony, just like pump sugar in it and then take full combs out of that and
I don't.
plug them into there?
I don't.
Okay.
That's too much work.
Yeah.
How do you move it onto a bigger model?
So we're ready to move this into the box and spring. You get your bottom board and your empty box, and you just take all the combs out, and you put the honeycombs on the outsides and the brood combs on the insides. And there's 8 here, so I add one more empty one in the middle, maybe a nice dark brood comb. Strap it together and move it to a bee yard. Any questions?
9 frames in a 10 frame box?
I do. Foundation, you need 10 to start, but then I go 9.
Do you make these boxes yourself?
I do. They are. Well, yeah, people make them. Where are you at? Western Mass. I don't know, Michael Willer's friend.